Looking back, I believe I led our home down a very destructive, tragic path. Alcohol, partying, drug use, sexual sin, just basically really any kind of immorality and debauchery you can think about, I believe I brought into our marriage. I had grown up in a home that was very active and very involved in each other's lives, very loving, but it was mostly godless. My dad grew up Jewish. My mom grew up in church. Neither one is a practicing in their faith, and we weren't either. I mean, I was godless. I mean, I wasn't an atheist. I think I believed that there was a God out there. I don't know what I believed, but leading up to that, I started asking questions of some friends of mine that I knew were in church, that and just really, what's the point of existence? What's the meaning of life? You know, and I would get answers about Jesus and stuff like that, but it really made no sense to me. But it was Easter Sunday, and the day before, I had been to a presentation of the gospel, a dramatization of the gospel. I saw Christ praying in the garden. I saw the Satan tempting him. I saw him carry the cross. I saw him up on the cross. I saw him resurrected, and it was glorious, and it brought me to tears, and I don't even know why, because it didn't make sense to me at the time. I didn't know that story at the time, but I'm convinced that the next day that all of that kind of came together. I drove off by myself to this empty parking lot at this broken down school, and I just sat there, and I was gripping the steering wheel, and I don't know where the words came from. I had no knowledge of the Bible, no knowledge of God, no knowledge of how to be saved. I just started talking to God and said, I can't do this anymore. I'm lost, I'm empty, and I want more. And just sitting there in that parking lot with my hands gripping the steering wheel, I turned it all over to Christ, and somehow knew that Christ was the answer. I mean, I can't really describe or explain how or why that came to be. I don't know how I knew what to even say. I don't know what I said. It just came out in just a rush of emotion and pain, and that was it. I mean, I can't explain it. When we sat down as a couple to kind of split up our stuff in order to prepare our divorce papers, I had been to a local church on Easter Sunday, and while we were sitting there at the table, a visitation occurred. They came and knocked on the door. I stepped out on the porch, and it was 3 gentlemen from the church that were just coming to say hi, because I had visited. You know how churches around here do. And they said, well, how are things going? I said, well, not too good. And I said, my wife and I are actually getting a divorce, and we're inside splitting up our stuff. And I just instantly saw their compassion. And we talked a little bit more. They basically said, is there any hope of reconciliation? And I laughed at them. I was like, no. And so before they left, they said, can we pray for you? And I don't even know who these gentlemen were. Never met them again that I know of. But they basically bowed their head and said, will you pray with us? And I said, sure. And they specifically asked God to heal my marriage, to restore our marriage. I believe those prayers were answered. I believe God honored those prayers of the faithful, unbeknownst to me. And it's just powerful to think about. Since, we've gotten very active in church together as a couple, as a family. It was July 17th when we reconciled in 2000, and September 21st, just 2 months later, we got pregnant with our first child, Andrew, and now have 2 children. And I just believe that those 2 children, after trying for 4 years unsuccessfully to get pregnant and going through what we went through, that they are just a living symbol and representation of just God's amazing grace.